In the world of WWE, a comeback is more than just a return. It's a statement. It's the moment a superstar steps back into the spotlight, not just to reclaim their place, but to prove they've evolved. And sometimes, that evolution is written all over their body. Over the years, we've seen some jaw-dropping transformations. Wrestlers who disappeared for months or even years, only to return looking like completely different beasts. Leaner, stronger, sharper. These aren't just physical changes. They're a reflection of discipline, sacrifice, and an unrelenting desire to rise again. Whether it was the result of an injury, a personal setback, or just time away from the ring, these superstars didn't just train, they rebuilt themselves. Their new physiques weren't just impressive. They were a warning to the rest of the locker room. In this list, we're counting down 10 more WWE wrestlers whose returns left fans stunned. Let's dive in. 10. Randy Orton, the Apex Predator Unleashed. When Randy Orton made his much-anticipated return to WWE in 2023, after an extended absence due to a serious back injury, the entire wrestling world collectively held its breath. This wasn't just another comeback. It felt like a rebirth, a second chance at greatness. Over the years, fans had come to know Orton as the Viper, a lean, agile, and precise competitor, but this new incarnation was different. Standing in the spotlight was a Randy Orton who looked almost sculpted from stone, muscles rippling beneath his skin, veins tracing paths like rivers of power across his forearms and chest. His shoulders seemed wider and more imposing, almost as if they were suspended from invisible hooks, giving him a predator-like silhouette. His abs were sharply defined, each segment resembling the pillars of a grand cathedral, strong and unyielding. Even the set of his jaw had hardened, giving him a fierceness that was almost palpable. It was a physical transformation, but more than that, it was a metamorphosis of spirit. The moment the familiar opening chords of his entrance music hit, the crowd erupted. Fog rolled across the stage, and through it appeared that unmistakable figure, confident, intimidating, and razor-focused. The intensity in his eyes told the story. Randy Orton was back, not just as a competitor, but as a force of nature. He carried with him the weight of his previous triumphs and scars, but none of the weariness. His presence was magnetic and threatening in equal measure. The Apex Predator was no longer just a nickname. It was a promise. Every move, every stare, every calculated step into the ring whispered that Orton was not just here to participate. He was here to dominate. The back injury, which had once threatened to end his career, only seemed to have sharpened his edge, fueling an internal fire that had yet to be fully unleashed. Fans old and new watched, captivated by this more dangerous, more evolved Randy Orton. His legacy was secure, but now the story was far from over. The beast had returned, and it looked more lethal than ever. 9. Chris Jericho, the reinvented rock star. Chris Jericho's career is a testament to reinvention, resilience, and relentless evolution. Few in the wrestling world have managed to stay relevant for decades by constantly shifting their style, persona, and physical condition, and Jericho stands at the pinnacle of that art. His journey through physical adversity is particularly inspiring. Back in 2011, Jericho faced one of the toughest challenges of his career, a debilitating back injury that cast doubt on his future. For many, such an injury could mark the beginning of the end, but Jericho's story was different. He turned inward, searching for a solution beyond conventional medicine. That's when he discovered DDP Yoga, a practice blending flexibility, strength, and mindfulness. Within just 6 weeks, Jericho began to feel a noticeable reduction in pain. By 6 months, the chronic agony that once threatened his career was nearly gone. This wasn't a quick fix. It was a transformation, one that allowed him to return to WWE in 2012, not just healed, but better than ever. Jericho's comeback was more than physical. His movements in the ring were sharp, confident, and full of energy that reminded fans why he was one of the best to ever step inside the squared circle. But Jericho didn't stop there. As the years went by, he continuously sought new challenges. In 2018, he made a bold move to New Japan Pro Wrestling, a stage known for its grueling style and passionate fans. To match this new chapter, Jericho intentionally bulked up, developing a more imposing and villainous persona dubbed the Painmaker. This was a darker, more intense version of Jericho, physically bigger, psychologically formidable. Yet Jericho's story also highlights the importance of balance and health. By late 2021, recognizing the toll that certain lifestyle choices were taking on his body, he undertook a comprehensive lifestyle overhaul, cutting out alcohol, improving his nutrition, and recommitting to fitness. The results were remarkable. Over 30 pounds of fat melted away, revealing a lean, muscular, and energized Jericho who looked more vibrant than ever. His career isn't just about wrestling. It's a story of persistence, adaptability, and the power of reinvention. Chris Jericho proves that no matter your age or obstacles, it's possible to reclaim your greatness and continue evolving. 8. Test a chiseled return with resilience. In the early 2000s, Test was one of WWE's quintessential powerhouses, a towering figure whose sheer size and muscle commanded attention the moment he stepped into the arena. He wasn't just big, he was the embodiment of raw strength and determination. Around 2002, Test made a conscious decision to reinvent himself. He cut his hair shorter, swapped elaborate costumes for simpler ring gear, and let his chiseled physique become his signature. This was a man who wanted his body to tell a story of grit and relentless drive. But just as his momentum was gaining steam, fate intervened. A serious neck injury sidelined him at a critical time, threatening not only his wrestling career, but his ability to live without constant pain. The injury was severe enough that WWE chose not to renew his contract. Fans were left wondering if this was the final chapter for Test. Yet, deep inside, Test's passion refused to be extinguished. In 2006, the wrestling world saw a new chapter unfold. Test returned to the ring, this time under the banner of ECW. What greeted fans was a version of Test they hadn't seen before. He was bigger, bolder, and physically more imposing than ever. The man who once commanded attention now demanded it, with an almost ferocious presence. His body had grown noticeably more substantial. Every muscle seemed to carry more weight and power. His presence was magnetic, more intense. His wrestling style also transformed. Gone was the measured strength of his past, replaced by a relentless, aggressive approach that overwhelmed opponents like a battering ram. Whispers about the methods behind his physical transformation circulated through locker rooms and wrestling forums alike. Some speculated about the use of performance enhancers. Others simply admired the sheer dedication it took to reinvent himself so thoroughly. Test, ever candid, acknowledged that he had pushed boundaries, physically and mentally, to reclaim his place. But beneath the muscles and aggression was a fighter who had endured pain, setbacks, and moments when giving up would have been the easier path. He refused to let his dreams die, and his return was a testament to that fierce determination. Sadly, Test's story also serves as a somber reminder of the complex, often fragile balance between ambition and health. 7. Scott Steiner. The evolution of the freak. Scott Steiner's physical transformation is one of the most striking and controversial in the history of professional wrestling. Early on, Steiner was a solid, muscular competitor with the build of a classic bodybuilder, strong, athletic, and capable. But as his career progressed, something remarkable happened. His body began to evolve in ways that defied conventional expectations. What emerged was a figure that fans and colleagues affectionately, if sometimes nervously, nicknamed Freakzilla. Scott Steiner's shoulders and arms ballooned to immense proportions, so massive that casual observers often found themselves staring in disbelief. His chest and abdominal muscles grew exaggerated, almost surreal in their size and definition. Watching him in the ring was like witnessing a force of nature, a human marvel whose physique overshadowed everything around him. His transformation was more than skin deep. It became a vital part of his wrestling persona. The Big Papa Pump, as he was known, carried with him an aura of raw power and unpredictability that made him both fascinating and intimidating. Those who shared the locker room with him often joked, sometimes nervously, about his intensity. One famously remarked, "I thought Scott Steiner was going to kill me in New Orleans." The joke wasn't far off. It captured the aura of overwhelming strength and wild unpredictability Steiner exuded. Steiner was unapologetic about his physique. He openly challenged assumptions and accusations, often proclaiming that he never failed drug tests and suggesting that others in the industry were held to different standards. Whether admired as a marvel of physical dedication or criticized as a controversial figure, there's no denying the mark Steiner left on the definition of what it means to be built in professional wrestling. His body was more than just a collection of muscles. It was a symbol, a visual representation of the ferocity and larger-than-life character he brought to every match. Scott Steiner's transformation pushed the limits of human form and performance, forever changing how wrestlers think about strength, size, and presence. 6. Kane, the corporate demon. Reimagined Kane's evolution is unique in that it blends myth, storytelling, and physical transformation into one seamless journey. When Kane first appeared on WWE screens, he was a monstrous, masked figure, a terrifying embodiment of darkness, power, and mystery. His towering frame, hidden behind a mask and shrouded in shadow, made him seem like an unstoppable force. He wasn't just a man, he was a nightmare come to life. But as with many wrestlers, injuries began to shape his trajectory. In 2002, a bicep injury forced Kane to keep his mask on longer than originally planned, and his once massive, hulking physique softened a bit. Despite these physical changes, the aura of menace he carried never diminished. Kane remained a demon in the eyes of fans, a nightmare in the ring that no opponent wanted to face. Then came one of the most unexpected and intriguing reinventions in wrestling history. Kane shed the mask and the monstrous persona. Trading his crimson robes for tailored suits and crisp business attire, Kane became the corporate demon. This wasn't just a change in wardrobe, it was a radical shift in physical presence and character. Gone was the massive bulk that once defined him. Instead, Kane's body transformed into a leaner, more sculpted frame. His arms became toned, his abs clearly visible, and his posture sharpened to match his new role. The new Kane was no longer just a brute force of chaos. He was a calculated, methodical powerhouse. He dominated not just with raw strength, but with terrifying composure, intellect, and strategic precision. This corporate version of Kane showed fans that dominance can take many forms. It proved that power is not only about size, but about presence, control, and mental fortitude. Even without the mask, even without the monstrous theatrics, Kane remained a force to be reckoned with, still formidable, still commanding, but now wielding a new kind of power. Kane's journey is a testament to evolution in wrestling, not only physical, but psychological and narrative. He is proof that legends aren't defined solely by muscle or brutality, but by their ability to reinvent, adapt, and continue to captivate audiences with fresh, compelling stories. 5. Brock Lesnar, Beast Mode, in every shape. Few athletes in wrestling, or even sports in general, command instant recognition quite like Brock Lesnar. His name alone brings to mind overwhelming dominance, raw power, and a ferocity that few can match. But what really sets Lesnar apart is how his body has evolved to meet the different demands of the worlds he conquered, both professional wrestling and mixed martial arts. When Lesnar stormed back into WWE in 2012 after spending years in the UFC, fans noticed immediately that something was different. Gone was the bulky, bodybuilder-style frame that had defined his earlier WWE run. Instead, he carried a leaner, tighter, more athletic build, one clearly sculpted for the brutal demands of MMA. His muscles weren't just large, they were compact and functional, designed for explosive power and relentless endurance. He looked less like the traditional wrestling giant and more like a finely tuned combat machine, ready to unleash fury in the octagon. This transformation was more than cosmetic. It reflected the harsh discipline of mixed martial arts training. Lesnar's physique blended immense strength with agility and precision. He had become a warrior sculpted by a completely different set of challenges, proving that muscle size wasn't everything when fighting at the highest level. Yet, wrestling and MMA require very different physical approaches. The WWE's blend of athleticism and spectacle demands size and presence as much as skill. The grind of the WWE schedule, with its intense travel and storyline demands, pushed Lesnar to bulk back up, reclaiming the broad, imposing frame that first made fans fall in love with him. He grew bigger, stronger, and more commanding, a living testament to the delicate balance between athleticism and showmanship. Then, in 2014, when rumors swirled about another MMA comeback, Lesnar once again reshaped himself. He dropped weight, honing his muscles for speed and stamina, key traits for the UFC's unforgiving environment. At UFC 200, he showed the world a version of himself that was sharp, focused, and relentless, proving he was still a beast no matter his shape or size. Brock Lesnar's story is one of constant evolution. Whether bulking up for the WWE spotlight or trimming down for the brutal octagon, he adapts seamlessly. Every iteration of Lesnar is a beast built for purpose, relentless, formidable, and impossible to ignore. His physical journey embodies the warrior's spirit, reminding us that strength isn't just about muscle mass, but about how you harness it. 4. Drew McIntyre. From nobody to dominator, few comeback stories in wrestling feel as powerful and cinematic as Drew McIntyre's. Early in his WWE career, he was hailed as the Chosen One, a tall, athletic, and charismatic talent who seemed destined for superstardom. Yet, in wrestling, talent alone isn't enough. Timing, opportunity, and sometimes luck play huge roles. When WWE released McIntyre, it felt like his dreams had suddenly dimmed, and many wondered if we'd ever see the star he was meant to become. What followed was a humbling and challenging chapter for McIntyre, far from the bright lights and roaring crowds of WWE. Wrestling in small venues for modest audiences on the independent circuit, he found himself at a crossroads. Fade quietly into obscurity, or fight back harder than ever. Without the spotlight to lean on, McIntyre chose the latter, and it was this decision that set the stage for one of the most inspiring transformations in wrestling history. Alone and determined, McIntyre dedicated himself fully, not just to rebuilding his body, but his mind and spirit as well. His transformation was anything but instant. It took relentless, grueling training, strict nutrition, and a mental reset that demanded equal parts patience and grit. Slowly, he sculpted his physique into something more than just muscle. It became armor, a physical testament to the battles he was fighting inside and out. As he wrestled through the independent scene, McIntyre didn't just compete, he dominated. He began winning titles, earning respect, and commanding attention with every match. People who once overlooked him started to stop, watch, and realize that this was no longer the same wrestler they'd seen years ago. When McIntyre returned to WWE via NXT in 2017, the transformation was undeniable. He was taller, broader, and more defined, a living symbol of perseverance. This new Drew McIntyre wasn't just reclaiming his career, he was rising like a warrior king from the ashes. His presence radiated confidence, purpose, and an intensity born from overcoming setbacks. Every entrance, every move, every stare down carried the weight of a man who had fought tooth and nail for his place, and earned it. McIntyre's journey stands as a powerful reminder that resilience can turn defeat into the greatest comeback, proving that sometimes the darkest moments forge the strongest champions. 3. AJ Styles, from agile phenom to raw powerhouse. When AJ Styles arrived in WWE, he carried with him the reputation of a phenomenal athlete, a lean, agile phenom known for dazzling fans with his speed, grace, and technical mastery. His early WWE days echoed the style that made him a star in TNA, high-flying, fast-paced, and almost poetic in motion. Watching Styles was like watching a dancer who could flip, twist, and flow with a natural rhythm. But wrestling is a brutal business, and as Styles climbed the ranks, the competition grew fiercer, and the physical demands more punishing. He knew that to survive and thrive, he needed to evolve his body as well as his in-ring style. Slowly and carefully, Styles added muscle, not to bulk up for show, but to build power without sacrificing the flexibility and fluidity that defined him. It was a delicate balance. He needed enough strength to withstand grueling matches and absorb punishment, but also the nimbleness to maintain his trademark agility. The result was a refined athlete, someone who could strike with explosive force but still move with the grace of a cat. Then, at the end of 2023, Styles re-emerged with a physique that surprised even his longtime fans. Not just bigger, but sharper. His arms and shoulders were sculpted like carved marble, his chest fuller and more commanding. There was a new intensity in his presence, a darker, more mysterious energy that suggested this wasn't just a physical upgrade, but a rebirth of spirit. When asked about his transformation, Styles kept it simple and confident. "No, this is a new phenomenon." The statement was short, but packed with meaning. AJ Styles wasn't just the agile technician or high-flying star anymore. He was something evolved, a raw powerhouse ready to carve an even deeper legacy in the wrestling world. His journey shows that evolution isn't just about muscle or size. It's about growing into the fullness of your potential while staying true to what makes you unique. 2. Bradshaw, JBL, the Texan turned tycoon. Before he was the slick, razor-sharp Wall Street tycoon known as JBL, Bradshaw was the embodiment of raw power and rugged toughness. A hulking figure from Texas, he was the kind of wrestler whose strength spoke louder than any words ever could. Unlike the chiseled, polished bodybuilders dominating wrestling's aesthetics at the time, Bradshaw's muscles were less about perfection and more about sheer substance. built for hard-hitting brawls, not glamorous poses under the spotlight. His early persona was classic brawler, gritty, tough, and rough around the edges. Bradshaw was a man's man, a powerhouse who didn't rely on flashy moves or flashy costumes to make an impression. His style was straightforward: hit hard, wear down opponents, and let his size and strength do the talking. The crowd might not have always loved the subtlety, but they couldn't deny the force he brought to every match. Then, in 2003, everything changed. Bradshaw underwent a transformation that caught fans off guard and redefined his entire career. He emerged as JBL, the Wall Street Tycoon. Suddenly, this wild brawler had traded in his worn-out denim and rugged look for tailored suits, expensive watches, and an air of ruthless corporate control. He wasn't just a fighter anymore. He was a calculating, strategic businessman who manipulated the wrestling world like a Wall Street shark. The swagger in his step, the cold confidence in his gaze, and the sharpness of his attire all spoke to a new kind of power, one that combined brains with brawn. Physically, Bradshaw didn't drastically change overnight. He remained broad-shouldered and strong, but the nature of his strength shifted. It was no longer just about raw muscle. It became psychological, cerebral. JBL's dominance stemmed from his ability to outthink his opponents as much as outfight them. Every gesture, every movement was deliberate, reinforcing his persona as a ruthless tycoon who could control the ring through intimidation and strategy, not just brute force. However, time is an unyielding opponent. Years of wrestling and injuries slowly chipped away at his physical edge. A persistent back injury in particular limited his ability to train and compete at the intensity he once had. His movement lost some of its earlier fluidity, and his mass subtly shifted as the wear and tear of countless battles took their toll. By 2006, Bradshaw stepped away from active competition, leaving behind a legacy that was about more than just brute strength. He was a character who proved that power isn't measured solely in muscle, but also in presence, intelligence, and the ability to adapt and reinvent oneself. His journey from wild Texan brawler to shrewd corporate tycoon remains one of wrestling's most memorable transformations, a testament to the idea that evolving your persona is just as important as building your body. 1. Braun Strowman, the Sculpted Monster. If Bradshaw's story is one of reinvention through intellect, Braun Strowman's is a tale of raw power, refined into disciplined mastery. When Braun first burst onto the WWE scene, he was the very definition of a monster. Towering over many opponents at around 400 pounds, with wild hair and a thick beard, Strowman relied on overwhelming size and brute strength to dominate. His presence alone could silence a crowd. It was like watching a mountain of muscle and fury moving with unstoppable momentum. But Strowman's story is more than just raw size. From the outset, it was clear he wasn't content with being merely big. He wanted to be efficient, controlled, and precise, a force that could not only overpower, but also outthink and outmaneuver his competition. His transformation from a roaring wrecking ball into a sculpted machine was gradual but profound. As his career progressed, Strowman shed pounds, sharpened his muscles, and honed his agility. No longer was he just a massive brute. He became a powerful blend of speed, control, and measured aggression. By the time he returned to WWE in 2022, he had reinvented himself physically and mentally. Weighing in at around 335 pounds, with impressively low body fat, Strowman's physique rivaled that of many professional bodybuilders. He looked chiseled and precise, a terrifying presence that combined the sheer power of a monster with the grace and discipline of an elite athlete. This was more than just a physical makeover. It was a complete shift in identity. Braun Strowman evolved from the untamed force of chaos into a calculated and devastating force of nature. He mastered his strength, wielding it with purpose and precision. His moves were no longer just about throwing opponents around, but about controlled destruction, calculated, devastating, and effective. What makes Strowman's transformation so inspiring is that it challenges common ideas about what it means to be powerful. It's not enough to be big and loud. True strength comes from mastery, balance, and adaptability. Strowman showed that a monster could grow smarter, faster, and more refined without losing any of the edge that made him terrifying. His evolution from a raw, untamed beast to a sculpted, disciplined powerhouse is a story of growth, both physical and mental. It serves as a reminder that power, when harnessed correctly, is not just about mass, but about control, precision, and the relentless pursuit of becoming better. In his hands, raw strength became a weapon wielded with terrifying efficiency and purpose, a testament to what happens when brute force meets discipline. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe for more valuable updates.